When they arrived at the castle gate, they knocked for entrance with a most uncommon noise. At that, the old giant came to the gate, and Diffidence, his wife, followed. The giant called out, "Who and what is he who is so brave as to come to my gate and bother the giant Despair in this manner?" Great-Heart replied, "It is I, Great-Heart, one of the king of the celestial country's guides to pilgrims. I conduct them to their place, and I demand that you open your gates and let me in. Prepare yourself to fight, for I have come to take off your head and to demolish Doubting Castle." Now, Giant Despair, because he was a giant, thought that no man could overcome him. So he reasoned that since in times past he had conquered angels, why should he be afraid of this man, Great-Heart? So he equipped himself with armor and went out to meet Great-Heart. He wore a cap of steel on his head, a breastplate of fire, and shoes made of iron. In his hand he held a great club. The 6 men drew up to him and surrounded him in front and behind. When Diffidence, the giantess, came to help her husband, old Mr. Honest cut her down with one blow. Then the fight grew fierce, and they fought for their lives. Giant Despair was brought down to the ground, but was very reluctant to die. He struggled hard and seemed to have, as they say, as many lives as a cat. Finally, Great-Heart killed him, but didn't leave until he had severed his head from his shoulders and buried his body under a great pile of stones. Since Giant Despair was dead, they started demolishing Doubting Castle. It took them 7 days to bring it down, and in the process they found 2 pilgrims alive inside. A Mr. Despondency, who was almost starved to death, and his daughter, Much Afraid. But it would have you wonder to have seen all the dead bodies scattered here and there in the castle yard, and how full the dungeon was of dead men's bones. When Great-Heart and his companions had performed this heroic act, they took Mr. Despondency and his daughter, Much Afraid, into their protection, for they were honest people who had been imprisoned in Doubting Castle by that tyrant Giant Despair. They took the head of the giant with them to the road and showed it to their companions who waited for them there and told them what they had done. Now, when Feeble-Mind and Ready to Halt saw that it was really the head of Giant Despair, they were very lively and merry. Now, Christiana, if needed, could play upon the viol, and her daughter Mercy the lute. So since everyone was so happy, they played them a song, and Ready to Halt danced. He took Despondency's daughter, Much Afraid, by the hand, and danced with her in the road. True, he could not dance without using one crutch, but I promise you, he handled his footwork well, and the girl was to be commended, for she kept time to the music handsomely. As for Mr. Despondency, he wasn't as interested in the music. He cared more about eating than dancing, because he was almost starved while held captive in the castle. So Christiana gave him some of her bottle of spirits to help him feel better immediately, and then she prepared him something to eat. In a short time, the old gentleman became more himself and revived. Now I saw in my dream, when all these things had taken place, that Great-Heart took the head of Giant Despair and set it upon a pole by the side of the highway. He placed it right against the pillar which Christian had erected for a warning to other pilgrims who would come after him when entering into the giant's grounds. Beneath it, he wrote upon a marble stone these verses: "This is the head of him whose name only in former times terrified pilgrims, his castles torn down and diffidence his wife, brave Mr. Great-Heart as deprived of life. Despondency and his daughter much afraid, great heart for them also the man has played. Whoever doubts this, if he'll just cast his eye up here, may his doubts and questions satisfy. This head also, when doubting cripples dance, does show from fears they have deliverance." When these men had bravely proven themselves against doubting castle, and had slain giant Despair, they continued on their journey until they came to the Delectable Mountains, where Christian and Hopeful refreshed themselves with the beautified woods, vineyards, fruits of all sorts, as well as flowers of that place. They also became acquainted with the shepherds there, who welcomed them to the Delectable Mountains in the same way they had welcomed Christian before. Now the shepherds were well acquainted with Great-Heart, and when they saw him leading such a large group of people, they said to him, "Good sir, you have a good-sized group here. Where did you find all these people?" Great-Heart replied, "First there is Christiana and her train, her sons and her sons' wives, who, like the wain, keep by the pole, and do by compass steer, from sin to grace, else they had not been here. Next here's old Honest, come on pilgrimage, ready to halt too, who I dare engage. True-hearted is, and so is feeble mind, who willing was not to be left behind. Despondency, good man, is coming after, and so also is much afraid his daughter. May we have entertainment here, or must we further go? Let's know whereon to trust." The shepherds said, "We are comfortable with this group. You are welcome to stay with us, for we have accommodations for the feeble as well as for the strong. Our prince pays attention to what is done to the least of these. Therefore, frailty and sickness must not be a hindrance to our hospitality." The king will answer and say to them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me." Matthew chapter 25, verse 40. So they ushered them to the palace door and said, "Come in, Mr. Feeble-Mind. Come in, Mr. Ready to Halt. Come in, Mr. Despondency, and Mrs. Much Afraid, his daughter." "These, Mr. Great-Heart," said the shepherds to the guide, "we call in by name, for they are most likely to draw back. But as for you and the rest of the group who are strong, we leave you to your usual liberty." Great-Heart said, "This day I see that grace shines in your faces, and that you are truly my Lord's shepherds. For you have not pushed the infirm or diseased with your side or shoulder, but instead have scattered flowers on the path at their feet, as you should. Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world." James chapter 1, verse 27.